children, it's Grandma Carla with another chapter of Freddy and the Flying Saucer Plans. This is chapter 14. Freddy had a pair of gloves in his pocket. The fingers were stuffed with sand. When he pulled them on over his foretrotters, they looked enough like regular hands so that nobody would know that he was a pig, as long as they didn't shake hands with him. He put them on now. As the man came toward them, Jinx, who had been sitting by the fire, jumped up and ran across in front of him. He scowled and half lifted the gun and then lowered it again. "This your cat?" he asked Uncle Ben. Instead of replying, Uncle Ben turned to Freddy. "Eeny, meena, hippery, dick?" he asked. "Acha pacha Dominic," Freddy said, and then turned to the spy. "It is our cat," he said. "Is bad luck, black cat," said the man. He eyed Jinx with a sort of glowering uncertainty, and then he shrugged his heavy shoulders and jerked his thumb at Uncle Ben. "This man not speaking English?" he said. "He speaks only Romany, our gypsy language," Freddy said. "Oh yes, he knows much English, but he does not like to speak it, because he does not like American people who speak it." "He is not liking America? He is citizen?" The man looked at Uncle Ben thoughtfully. Uncle Ben scowled at Freddy. "Achapacha domanacha," he said sharply. "Tee-tatush, ugla bugly boo." Freddy hung his head as if he had been reprimanded, but it was really to hide his grin as he replied, "Utskatsu." Then, getting rid of the grin, he looked up again. He says I talk too much." Maybe so, said the other, and he looked around at the caravan and at the animals. "You have permit for camping here?" he asked. Freddy said, "We do not need a permit. We camp here every year, a week, a month, for many years. The sheriff knows us. You ask him about Jasper Field. That is my husband." He nodded toward Uncle Ben. "Field?" The man looked puzzled. "Is gypsy name? Is American, no?" Uncle Ben said angrily. "Itri mintri kutra corn." Then turning his back, he walked away. Freddy says the name is not American. You have made him angry. He does not like Americans. The man narrowed his eyes and looked speculatively at Uncle Ben. And then he turned back to Freddy. "You are fortune teller?" he asked. "I can tell your fortune, gentlemen," said the pig. "The past, the future, if you wish to know it. Sometimes it is not wise to ask." The man held out his hand. "Tell me what you see in this hand." But Freddy shook his head. "Not today. Zelda will not tell your fortune today. The black cat has crossed your path today. It is not a good time." "No," he said firmly as the man persisted. "I would not see the good things, only the bad, when the black cat has warned you. Come tomorrow. Just before sundown is the best time. Zelda will tell you then." "Very good." As the man turned to go, he scowled at Jinx. The cat got up and trotted deliberately across in front of him again, but this time he didn't raise the gun. He said something under his breath and disappeared down the path. "Those counting out rhymes make good gypsy talk," Freddy said, "but there aren't enough of them. Maybe we could use Hog Latin." "Rete, ite, ixte, ne, imite," said Uncle Ben. "We will," said Freddy. "We must send word to the sheriff to tell him we're real gypsies. He's sure to go ask. And that was smart of you, Jinx, to run in front of him. We know now he's superstitious, and he won't try to make us move until he has had his fortune told. I was afraid he might complain about us to the state troopers, and they'd order us to leave." "Why didn't you tell him one?" Mrs. Wiggins asked. "You could have given him a good one." "I can give him a better one when I know more about what is inside of the house," Freddy said. "How about it, mice? Want to go up and have a try at getting in?" The 4 mice jumped. "What?" said Eeny. "Now? Walk across that lawn in broad daylight?" Eek Quick exclaimed. "What do you want us to do?" said Eek. "Charge up that hill with probably guns trained on us from every window? You're crazy, Freddy." "Yeah," said Cousin Augustus. "What do you think we are? A bunch of lions or something? Us mice don't operate that way." Samuel gave a contemptuous sniff. Far as I can see, they don't operate at all. I say they don't operate at all. Want me to go, Freddy? I can get into the house and scout around. Jinx says there's a hole to get in by, next to the cellar door. Freddy shook his head. You aren't used to houses, Samuel. You'll get caught. You're too nearsighted anyway, said Quick. You couldn't find out anything. And they'd see you crawling around and you wouldn't even know what hit you. Is that so? I say, is that so? Well, you won't find out anything. That's a cinch. Big cowards. The mice all began yelling at him at once. Who says we're cowards? At least we aren't afraid to stay on top of the ground. Come on, Freddy, we'll go. We'll go right now. And they started up the path toward the house. Freddy said, no, wait a minute. You'd really better wait until nighttime. And as he followed along, trying to persuade them, their pace gradually slowed, and presently they stopped. Well, maybe you're right, said Eek. No sense getting knocked off just to show some beetle-brained mole that we're not afraid. We'll go in tonight, as you suggest, Freddy. Samuel snickered, but Freddy shook his head at him. And then Jinx called, Hey, here comes JJ. Maybe he has some news. The robin planed down and lit on a low branch. There was no news from the farm. He said he just came up to see what was going on. They told him of their encounter with the big man, and then Freddy said, Let me take your glasses a minute, JJ. Mr. Pomeroy lifted the loop of ribbon over his head and handed them over. They were the kind that pinch on the nose, or rather, in Mr. Pomeroy's case, the beak. I thought you wore spectacles, Freddy said. I used to, said the robin. The kind that hook behind your ears. Only I haven't got any ears, and I was always losing them, so I got these. Mrs. Pomeroy likes them. She says it makes me look distinguished. He stuck out his chest and looked noble. They do give you a sort of scholarly look, said Freddy. Come here, Samuel. I want you to try these on. See if you don't see better with them on. He perched the glasses astride the mole's nose. Samuel swung his head slowly from side to side and then looked up at Freddy and backed off. Goodness, he exclaimed. As he continued to stare, Freddy said, Well, what's the matter? Is that what you look like? Said the mole. I never should have believed it. Never. So what? Said Freddy crossly. Is anything the matter with me? Oh, no, said Samuel. No, of course not. That is, no, nothing at all, really. It's just, maybe it's the gypsy costume. I say, maybe it's the gypsy costume. You do look fat. Fat? Well, I'm not skinny like Jinx here, Freddy said. Pigs are, well, they're more rounded, more elegantly curved than some animals. I'll say they are, interrupted the mole. Why, kid yourself, Freddy, you're fat. And what's the harm in that? I say, what's the harm in that? Well, said Freddy, it's not very tactful to, but at that moment the mole looked around and saw the mice. Good grief, he exclaimed. What are those dreadful little creatures? Can those be mice? Those chinless, snake-tailed, bug-shaped things? Oh, take them away. I say, take them away. He snatched off the glasses and held them out to Freddy. With the other forepaw, he covered his eyes. I've seen enough. I'm glad my eyes are bad. I don't want to see any better. I like you, Freddy. But up to today, you've been just a large white blur to me, and that's the way I can feel kindly toward you. The mice had left in a huff and were chattering angrily together down by the water. Freddy said, I do suppose that things look queer when you see them for the first time clearly. Mr. Pomeroy here had the same experience. Did you, JJ? Oh, yes, said the robin, but after a short time you get used to your friends' faces, and they don't make you jump anymore. Why, even Mrs. Pomeroy, when I first saw her through the glasses, well, I tell her now that she really startled me, but of course that's an exaggeration. But she did look different, not at all as I had imagined her. Yeah, said Samuel. Well, I like my friends to look like friends, not like something I dream about when I've eaten too many angleworms. I've got an extra pair home, the spectacles that hook over your ears, said Mr. Pomeroy. You're welcome to them if you can use them. Thanks, I guess not. They wouldn't be much use to me underground, and on top of ground, well, I get along all right. What's the use of scaring myself?" Freddy looked at Mr. Pomeroy and shrugged his shoulders. "Is that the way you felt when you first got glasses, JJ?" "I guess I did at first. I know what he means. But flying around, you have to see clearly. You can run into a wire and bust your beak. Or," he added with a smile, "you can try to pull a friend's tail off, thinking it's an angleworm." "Good thing it was fastened on tight," said Freddy. "You could have had an artificial one," said the robin, "a long one that you could wag. You've always wanted a waggable tail." Freddy said, "I asked Uncle Ben if he could make me one. He said he could, but he wouldn't guarantee that it would stay on. I'd look pretty silly if it just fell off when I was wagging it hard to greet the sheriff or Mrs. Peppercorn or somebody." "Sort of undignified," said Mr. Pomeroy. "Well, I must get back. By the way, I've got a report on the men who have got that roadblock east of the house. They talk English part of the time, and they've been keeping watch for a helicopter. I won't give you all the details, but the way I piece it out is this. These people in the house are spies or working for foreign agents. They are part of a larger gang, which has a secret base in Canada, somewhere in northern Ontario. There, they have long-distance planes that can fly over the pole to any country in Europe. If they can get the plans up to this air base, they can fly them to their government without interference. The trick is to get them from this house to the air base without being stopped by all these other spies that are watching the house. These roadblock guys think that they'll try to pick up the plans with a helicopter. They think it'll come at night, and they've got guns. No big stuff, just small iron arms to try to shoot it down. If that fails, they have a plane of their own at the Centerboro airfield, and they'll chase that copter and try to knock it down and grab the plans." Mr. Pomeroy took his glasses in one claw and tapped the branch thoughtfully. "I don't know how the pickup will be made," he said, "and I don't know whether the roadblock people or the other gangs of spies can stop it. But don't you think, Freddy, that it's too big a job for us? Don't you think we ought to call the FBI?" "We might have to later," said Freddy, "but I don't want to yet, for two reasons. One, the only way the FBI could capture these people would be to surround the house and drive them out with guns and tear gas. And what would the spies do? They'd burn the plans and swear that they hadn't stolen them. Then Uncle Ben would be in a nice hole. Or, two, if the automobile company and the government found out that Uncle Ben had been so careless as to mix up the plans, they'd think he was too silly to build the engine, and they'd call the whole thing off. Let's wait a few days and see how we make out. I've got some ideas." Freddy did indeed have some ideas, but they weren't ideas about how to get the plans back. They were ideas about poems to write, or practical jokes to play on Jinx, or how to lose a little weight without having to stop eating. But he didn't think it necessary to explain this to Mr. Pomeroy. At this stage in a detective case, he had found that he never did have a plan. But if he just kept on nosing around and stirring things up, something would happen that he could turn to his advantage. So as soon as it got dark that evening, they went up to the back gate of the Linehan house. There was shrubbery about the gate, and Freddy had expected that the mice would walk right up and across the back lawn in the dark and get in through the holes around the cellar door. But to his surprise, there were big electric lights on all sides of the house. The whole expanse of the lawn was floodlighted as bright as day, and the mice absolutely refused to walk up across all of that open lawn. "You know perfectly well, Freddy," Eek said, "that mice never walk across an open space. They go around the edges. Even at home, we never go straight across the barnyard. And this is 3 times as far. Mice just don't operate that way." "Sure, we know that," said Jinx with a grin. "And we know why. Because they're always scared. People talk about scaredy cats, but what they really ought to say is scaredy mice. Mice are scaredier than anybody." "They are not," said Quick, and Cousin Augustus said, "We're just smaller than other animals. We have to be careful." "Sure, and why all the lights?" said Eenie. It's so that these people can watch to see if anybody tries to get in the house. And you bet they've got guns too. But good gracious, they wouldn't shoot at a mouse, Freddy said. How'd we know, said Eek. What do we know about these people? Maybe they like to eat mice. Maybe they'd like nothing better than a nice mouse stew. Samuel came up and nudged Freddy. These mouse people, he said. I can take them up to the cellar door without being seen. Do you want to go, mice? I say, do you want to go? Then follow me. And he went up to the gate and plunged suddenly into the ground. The big electric light shone directly down on the lawn so that the little ridge that went up through the house cast no shadow. No watcher would have noticed anything. One by one, the mice went into the tunnel. Freddy watched, and after a minute or so, close to the foundation of the house, next to the cellar door, he saw a small black animal come up out of the ground, and following him, 4 smaller gray animals. They waved their forepaws at the gate. Then the mole dove back into the tunnel, and the mice vanished through the small hole beside the door. Pretty soon, Samuel came out by the gate. Well, I got him there, and I say I got him there, he said, though I don't know what good they'll be. They're so darn scared. As long as none of them got so scared they fainted and plugged up the tunnel. What do we do next? That is the end of chapter 14. So let's see our pictures. Okay, this is the big man with the gun that Jinx crossed his path, and he was a little superstitious, so he was worried about Jinx, the black cat, crossing his path. So here is a picture of Freddy dressed up like Zelda, the gypsy, and there's the cow, and there are the mice down on the ground, and there is a picture, it's hard to see, but there over here is a picture of Samuel the mole, and he's got glasses on, and his statement is, goodness, goodness, he exclaimed. And that is the end of chapter 14, and next time we will read chapter 15. This is Grandma Carla, and I love you.